Ford has gone crazy. It has fired more than 15,000 of its staff within the last 6 months, and its reason will shock you. They are blaming the United Automobile Workers Association for making employees too expensive to manage. The automotive production landscape in the US is twisted into right now, with every automaker being forced to make EVs that are simply not profitable. These companies are losing money, way more than they are making. Ford Motor Company has had its fair share of difficulties, and the recent firing spree by the company just further shows how bad the situation is. How close is Ford to bankruptcy? What plans does Ford have to avoid going bankrupt? What is the contribution of the UAW to this? Follow us as we take you on a journey that will answer these questions and more. Ford CEO Jim Farley is so pissed at the UAW that he has sent a very strong message to them saying, "You screwed yourself. You screwed the people you represent." This spells trouble for American automotive workers, because Ford is ready to make drastic decisions to make sure the production of Ford cars remains profitable and stop the union from dictating its financial moves, which might eventually bankrupt the company. The UAW has taken strike actions against Ford Motor Company multiple times within the last couple of years. This has made human labor in the USA too expensive. This, coupled with the fact that Ford has been losing money all over, has pushed the company to begin plans to move the majority of their vehicle production to Mexico. That's not all Ford did. Ford is now on a firing spree. An additional problem facing American workers comes in the form of robots. As we have mentioned before, companies like Ford and GM have had multiple run-ins with the US Workers Union, which has cut back on the profit margins of these companies. This is why, in turn, the companies have chosen robots to replace humans at many of their factories and are investing in the production of even more robots to take more jobs from factory workers. We do not support this. Rather, we hope to find some mutual ground by which factory workers and factory owners could work out their differences and keep humans in work. The reality, though, is that AI has taken the jobs of many, robots will further take more, and Jim Farley blames UAW for making the decision an easy one. Recently, the UAW went on strike against GM and Ford, but more on that later. This wouldn't be the first time auto workers would be striking. Each time they do so, the effects can be dramatic. Let's take a look at some of the most iconic strikes by auto workers. The Ford Hunger Strike of 1932. In the aftermath of the Great Depression, things got tough for Michigan auto workers. Their wages took a nosedive, nearly halving between 1929 and 1932. Jobs were scarce, and many folks in the auto industry found themselves out of work. On March 7, 1932, a big group, over 3,000 strong, led by the Detroit Unemployed Councils, decided to march to the Ford Rouge plant in Dearborn. What did they want? Jobs, help for the folks who got laid off, and better conditions for those still working there. But when they got to the plant, things got tense. The police and Ford security team were waiting, and they started shooting at the crowd. It was chaos. By the time it was over, 4 protesters were dead, and another one died later because of their injuries. The whole city was shaken up. Around 60,000 people showed up for the funerals of the ones who lost their lives. But even though the rally didn't change much right away, it did get people talking, and it set the stage for more protests down the line, and by 1941, there was another major protest. The River Rouge sit-down strike of 1941. Back in 1937, Walter Reuther and his pals from the UAW decided to visit Ford's River Rouge plant in Michigan. They weren't there for a tour, though. They were passing out leaflets with a slogan, "Unionism, not Fordism." It was a dig at Ford's way of doing things, which focused on assembly lines without workers having much say. But things got heated real quick. Ford's security guards weren't too happy about those leaflets. They started throwing punches, and poor Reuther ended up looking like he'd gone a few rounds with a heavyweight champ. The cameras were rolling, though, and they caught it all. The photos of Reuther battered and bruised didn't sit well with folks. Public opinion started to shift, but Ford still wouldn't budge. Fast forward to 1941, and things were still tense. 8 workers got the boot, and this didn't sit well with their buddies at the River Rouge plant. So they went on strike for 10 days straight, showing Ford they meant business. Finally, after 4 long years of fighting, Ford gave in. They recognized the union, making them the last big automaker to do so. Victory for the workers. This goes to show the drama between Ford Motor Company and the UAW has been ever present. Unfortunately, that drama only paused. It was far from over. Back in 2019, things got really tense between GM and its 46,000 workers. They decided to go on strike for more than a month, demanding better pay, job security, and benefits. It wasn't just about the money, though. Some workers were fired up about GM shutting down plants. After lots of back and forth, they finally struck a deal. GM agreed to give them pay bumps and promised to invest in U.S. factories. Plus, each union member got a nice $11,000 signing bonus just for saying yes to the new contract. Score one for the workers. Then the auto workers went all in 2023. The United Auto Workers Union scored big with new contracts from major automakers like Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis. These deals meant more money forcefully collected from Ford and given to union workers in the middle of a forceful shift in the auto industry towards electric vehicles. The same electric vehicles that have been pushing Ford towards bankruptcy. After some intense negotiations and even strikes, the union came out on top. Workers will see significant pay raises, with some getting a hefty 33% wage boost. Plus, the automakers agreed to streamline pay scales and include electric vehicle battery plants in the union contract. This victory also sparked a ripple effect. Non-union automakers like Honda and Toyota upped their wages too, possibly because they didn't want their workers eyeing the sweet benefits that come with being in a union. Overall, these contracts mean more power for the union and better wages not just for auto workers, but potentially for folks in other industries too. This recently completed strike meant a great deal for the workers, but you have to ask yourself, what about the automakers involved? Did this deal do more harm than good? What will be Ford's response? Ford's been making some big moves lately, and not everyone's happy about it. They've fired over 15,000 folks worldwide in just 6 months, with a big chunk of those cuts hitting the US. They shut down factories in Europe, including one in Germany and another in Spain. Now, why are so many heads on the chopping block? Well, Ford's feeling the squeeze. Officials say they can't afford to keep all those workers around, especially when robots are waiting in the wings. Yep, they're eyeing automation big time. When Tesla's bots are eventually ready, Ford is ready to write a check to get these bots. Apart from the efficiency, Ford will be delighted that bots that cannot unionize. It's a cold move, but Ford's thinking about the bottom line. The recent strikes by the UAW didn't help things. Jim Farley, Ford's CEO, is feeling a bit salty about it all. He's talking about revenge, saying the union's strong-arm tactics are putting jobs at risk. And Ford's got a point. They've been the only ones adding UAW jobs in the last decade and a half. But when the strikes hit, Ford believed to have been dealt an unfair hand. This is a tough pill to swallow for Ford, and they feel betrayed. So what's next? Well, Ford's looking south of the border, eyeing Mexico. They hope to build more factories in Mexico and cash in on the cheaper labor and tax benefits. This is ironic. Think about it. The US government wants to keep illegal immigrants from Mexico out of the US, but now, American companies are going to Mexico and taking American jobs there. It's a tough call, but Ford's got to stay competitive. The huge losses Ford has taken and the UAW breathing down the company's neck means the move south of the border is a juicy deal for Ford to stay afloat. Will it happen? Time will always tell. Things are definitely heating up in the auto industry. With other companies like BYD, Tesla, and GM moving to Mexico, be rest assured that the future is unpredictable. There is no arguing the fact that the UAW gained a lot from the deal that ended the 2023 strike. The bone of contention here is at what price. Ford is definitely bitter with the outcome, and the deal they have signed is doing more harm to the company. This is why Ford wants out of the deal. So they have begun to use methods which meant that the American employees would be dealt a tough hand that not even the UAW might be able to do anything about. What do you think would have been the best approach? Let us know what you think in the comments. Thank you for watching our video. Do kindly subscribe to our channel and we shall see you later with more updates.